We'd like to welcome you to the Healthcare Revolution podcast, where we empower you to take control of your health, restore your trust in the medical system, and achieve lasting wellness. I am your host, Brad Powell, Doctor of Physical Therapy and owner of an award-winning foundation physical therapy here in the Salt Lake Valley. Each episode, we dive into all things rehab prevention, overall health, bringing you expert insights from leaders across the healthcare fields. Please note, while we aim to provide with the best knowledge and advice, the opinions shared represent those of experts in the field and are not to be replaced with professional medical advice. So let's revolutionize healthcare and wellness together. Welcome to the Healthcare Revolution podcast. I have here with me Mandy McAllister, who comes with just so much experience on advocating for her children, advocating for her family, and just been through a lot with her son and her unique story of having a really challenging diagnosis for her son and multiple years of not having answers. And today we're going to talk about her story. And our theme today is how can parents respectfully and firmly advocate for their families in tough situations. And we just want to welcome her to the podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm so excited to we've talked about this story for some time now. Maybe, I want to say years. At least a year.
Well, how
maybe
long
a
have you?
couple.
Almost a year and a half, because it was about a year ago that you kind of opened my eyes a little bit. You probably don't even know that you did, but I'll get there.
No, I'm interested. Well, let's definitely talk about it. But the title of this podcast is A Mother's Journey to Advocacy in the Face of a Rare Disease. And it's not necessarily a disease, but a rare disorder. So we're going to kind of talk about her story and what she did through this. But our promise to you today is that we will give you practical strategies to help navigate the complex healthcare system while holding on to your kindness and firmness as a parent. Mandy, tell us about your story. Let's go to the end first. Okay. What do you know about Hudson and his condition right now?
Well, it was a long road to get here, but what we know now is he has a tethered spinal cord. He also has some lipomas, which is a fatty mass down in the bottom.
Tell us what the tethered spinal cord means.
I mean, you're going to be able to explain it better.
You do your best. I'll add my 2 cents.
From what I understand, the bottom of your spinal cord is kind of like a horsetail, right? There's lots of nerve endings, and his was stuck to this lipoma.
Do you know the name of the horsetail? I'm curious.
No.
Called the cauda equina.
No.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It literally is like a horsetail. It has all those nerve endings that just kind of look like a horsetail in the bottom of the spinal cord.
Yeah. So Hudson's was tethered, in other words, stuck in the very bottom of his spine.
Yeah. And do you know why that's an issue?
Well, he couldn't walk, so it caused so many problems.
What did his walk look like?
He was very hunched over. He couldn't stand up straight. His knees were kind of in. His toes were in. He was just like hunched over. He looked very uncomfortable. Yeah,
and if you know what the spinal cord does, the spinal cord, it actually has to grow with the spine. So the vertebra, the bones within the spine, they grow, and the spinal cord has to grow with it. And if something's holding down the cord, essentially you'll see that slumped posture, which limits their ability to stand up tall, because it's literally a rope that's not letting go for them to stand up tall. So that's one of the symptoms. The other symptom is, the gait problem, the walking.
He has a very sensory sensitive body. It was almost like his sensory system just wasn't functioning. It wasn't where it needed to be. He was I didn't know it at the time, but he was in pain. I kind of just thought he was an unhappy kid, but come to find out, he was in a lot of pain. And that was...
How did you know the sensory issues? What was some of his symptoms?
Tummy time as a baby, non-existent, couldn't do it. And it was like, to put his hands in the carpet, he would just immediately puke. Like if something sent him over the edge, he would just puke. And he still kind of does that. Like if he has something in his hand that, like a Cheerio, that should be hard and crunchy, but maybe it's mushy, he'll puke. Because he knows it's actually mushy and it's in my hand, but it's not supposed to be mushy.
So that's what you mean by like sensory issues.
Yeah, and like
these textures to him were just almost disgusting, overstimulating. Mm-hmm. They're just way too much for him, and that's how he'd respond, is by vomiting.
Yeah, that was kind of his body's response to being overstimulated. And at the time, I was just like, man, this kid is making me gray.
And this is from a mom that's had 2 other girls.
Yep.
How old are your 2 girls?
So I have a 9 and a 7-year-old tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah.
Harper?
Yep.
Happy birthday to Harper
Yeah,
tomorrow.
we're excited.
So yeah, you had 2 other babies that were very normal. Tummy time was just very normal for them. So all of a sudden you have this baby that it's not normal, and you're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So this happened for years, these sensory deficits or disorders. Tell us the story about what happened through his young years that you started to see signs, and then kind of tell us the story. Give us the back of the book summary.
So I kind of had a unique situation because I actually gave birth to Hudson with my sister. We had babies the exact same day in a conjoined labor and delivery room.
Oh, I
Yes.
didn't know that. I
Yeah.
thought you just had it the same day, but you
No.
literally had it in the same room.
Like my mom was between our rooms delivering us together.
Oh,
like
what a unique
at the same time.
experience.
It was amazing, but it's also really hard because now we have this baby that was born the same day as Hudson, and Hudson's super delayed and Ruby is not. Right.
So there's this comparative aspect.
Oh my gosh, the comparing almost just put me in the grave because it was hard to, like, that's how I realized that something was off. Because I think had I not had Ruby to watch her go through these milestones that Hudson wasn't going through, it would have, I don't know, I don't think I would have recognized it as fast. But by 6 months old, he wasn't sitting. He wasn't playing with toys with his hands. His feet constantly was like, they would turn like we called it churning butter.
Just churning butter. Maybe just
Yeah,
put his foot in
it was a sensory thing.
bucket. Yeah.
It was his body trying to stimulate his mind because he wasn't getting movement. So he would sit and circle his feet to try and give himself input.
So remind me how old Hudson is now.
Hudson is 4.
So he's 4 years old. This is a long journey.
Yes.
And this is years of recognizing these things. Tell us about the pediatric, when you go to your pediatrician, what were the conversations about these things that you were bringing up?
Well, first off, my pediatrician is the best person in the whole world, Tyson Jones. Seriously, he is incredible. And he is one that really advocates for mother's tuition. Like every time I brought Hudson in, I would say, this feels off. He's behind. He is lagging behind. And Dr. Jones would say, okay, what does your gut tell you? And I would say,
oh, so awesome.
He is seriously
we praise
amazing.
Tyson, Dr. Jones.
Dr. Jones. He's
Dr.
the
Jones,
best.
we're going to praise him.
Before
That's
he
awesome.
ever would diagnose my kids with anything, he'd tell me, well, what do you think? What are you seeing at home?
I
And
love
he's kind of the reason that I really honed into my mother's intuition because he pushed me towards that,
Yeah, and if you don't have a pediatrician like this, find one. That is
Find one.
incredible
He's the
because
best.
what we've realized is that moms or parents in general can tell us so much as healthcare providers of what's going on because you guys see the story, you see it every day, and we're just using our exam tools and our diagnostic tests to be able to figure out, okay, what makes sense. But there's so much unknown and there's so much that we just don't understand. So we rely so much on the parents to say, what are you seeing? What does your gut tell you? So it's so crucial to help us understand what needs to happen.
Yeah. And, at a year old, I took him in for his year-old appointment and Dr. Jones said, yeah, he's delayed. He's his gross motor, his fine motor, his speech, pretty much everything was delayed, but we didn't have a reason as to why. And he wasn't giving enough at a year old for us to be like, okay, let's go down this avenue. So Dr. Jones was like, with him being this delayed, let's order an MRI of his brain just to make sure that everything looks good. Because I'd rather know and be able to help him than not know. So he ordered an MRI.
And how old was Hudson at this point?
A year old.
Okay.
So he ordered an MRI.
So there's a lot of action early.
Yeah. I mean, truly, Dr. Jones pushed from the very beginning with me. And anything that I wanted or needed, he made it happen. And he was still, to this day, the best. So
that's so awesome. We need to send a note to him about how awesome he is. That is
every time I go. I mean, he gave me his cell phone number. He gave me
Who is he with? What
Utah Valley Pediatrics.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Down in Orem.
AF.
Oh, American Fork. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What an incredible guy. That's so awesome.
Yeah, he's great.
Okay, so you got these tests. Let's bring it down the road a little bit. What from there?
So, year old, they send us to early intervention. He starts PT, he starts OT. They actually brought in vision therapy because we found out that his eyes weren't tracking. He was diagnosed with delayed vision maturation, basically meaning the actual development of the eye wasn't happening. So, a car would go by and he wouldn't see it. He couldn't track it. And so we were kind of like, oh man. And then this is kind of where it started to get hard for me because I had people throwing out diagnoses at me that they didn't know. They had no idea what they were talking about. I had a PT tell me that he's going to be wheelchair bound by 6 and he's never going to walk. And then I
Points down for PT right there.
I know. I was like, yo, no. So and then I had
it
a
makes
vision.
You wonder, you're like, tell me your reasoning. Like, you're just shooting from the hip here?
She was. And she really did help Hudson a lot with PT, but I wish, because I struggle with anxiety. Someone throws out something like that, it doesn't just roll off my back. It hits me right in the heart.
That's a great lesson for anyone in healthcare. Be very wise at what you say, because, sometimes we just think it's just like this little thing, but that causes parents to spiral.
Yeah, it doesn't, it's not just a patient to me, it's my child. It doesn't roll off my back. I don't think, oh yeah, maybe. No, like if you tell me that, oh, I've seen this before and your child's going to be blind and let's get him enrolled in school for the deaf and the blind. And I'm just going down the drain. I mean,
you're like, just add it to the list.
Yes, I was sinking. I was not well trying to understand what these things were, but still I didn't have a firm diagnosis. These were just people who were working with Hudson that thought, oh yeah, maybe this is it.
Yeah.
So that was hard. We did a lot of that. Eventually I went back to Dr. Jones. So at Hudson's year birthday, he wasn't crawling. He wasn't walking. He was barely sitting.
He's still churning butter.
He's churning butter with his feet.
Okay.
Legs straight out. That's his stability. So
and he didn't even want his feet touched either, right?
No,
he didn't want his feet to touch the ground. It just really, sensation was just not for him.
No, he didn't like to be touched at all. In fact, when he wanted to be soothed, he wanted to be left alone, which was so not on me. Like, I want to hold and cuddle my babies all day, and he did not want that.
He's like, leave me alone, let me do my own thing.
Yes. So by 2 years old, his birthday comes around, and again, we have a birthday party with my niece because their birthdays are on the same day, and she's up running around being a cute 2-year-old, and Hudson's still not walking. He's barely crawling.
And then there's this comparison thing that we do as parents that's just not healthy. And you're just like, they were born at the same time, why is mine not doing this? And we all realize that milestones are different for every child, but that must have been so hard.
It was really overwhelming. And it was my sister's first baby. So I wanted to be the best aunt I could be, but it was really hard to be an aunt and watch Hudson struggle. But she was so supportive. She was kind. She would always be like, Mandy, Hudson's okay. Give him time. Give him time. He's on his own time frame.
Yeah.
He's fine. And then, I could encourage Ruby, but also it was to say that you didn't compare. I mean, I'd be lying to myself. I wish I didn't have to compare, but you just do. It's just natural. Yeah. I don't know.
It's something that we naturally do as just humans, right? And we all know that comparison's the thief of all joy.
It really is.
But at the same time, it's hard not to do. And what a great thing for your sister to recognize that you may have been feeling that way and be able to address that and say, I'm here to support you too. Because sometimes as older siblings, we want to be the guide for our younger siblings, but it's so cool to hear your sister as a younger sibling that hadn't been a mom yet come in and say, I got you too.
Oh yeah, she had my back from day one. She always has. And she's always just been super encouraging of Hudson. And so was Ruby, honestly, Hudson's cousin. I mean, she's the best. So anyway, he turns 2 and I went back to Tyson Jones, my pediatrician. And I'm like, we got to figure something out. He's not walking. He's 2. And we had been doing physical therapy for almost a year and a half and he still wasn't going. We even had like SMO braces made for him to support his ankles because his feet were just like rubber.
He couldn't control them. They're just floppy, right?
Super
floppy. So these
floppy.
Braces would essentially block in his ankles to allow him to start doing therapy.
Yeah, so they're just basically holding his ankles upright. And they did help, he could kind of
It's almost like he didn't have muscles in his ankles.
Oh my goodness, it was almost from the hips down. It wasn't just ankles. I mean, his whole lower half was just weak. And so at that point, Dr. Jones said, okay, let's call neurology. Let's get him an appointment with a neurologist and let's start working with them. And that was a really hard experience because neurology, swoosh, they're a different breed and they're so smart. They know so much. But our doctor didn't have great bedside. And that was, as a struggling mom who's trying to understand my son, it was a lot. Scanned his brain, everything looks great, but they never peeked at his back. And I didn't know what I was looking for. I didn't know to push, hey, why don't you scan his back? You know, nothing was wrong with his brain. And then they said, okay, let's do genetic testing. And I was like, okay, great. So we do genetic testing, and they end up finding a chromosome deletion, and it's called 7q36 deletion. And so he hands me...
What a name.
I mean, someone was
really
super creative out there.
Like, yeah, thanks for that diagnosis.
And they hand me, I'm not kidding you, a stapled packet of this
information.
And I'm just
It's probably outdated too.
Super outdated. I can't make heads or tails of it. I truly still to this day couldn't tell you a ton about this deletion because it doesn't fit Hudson. He might have it, but I don't feel like it's affecting him in the way that they thought it would. And my problem with this whole thing was that neurology found, you know, this deletion. Basically, the bottom of his 7th chromosome is deleted. The top of his 8th has multiplied. So he has some genetic abnormalities. They're telling me these symptoms. You know, he has these patients that have this chromosome deletion should have an abnormally large head. Their eyes should be super close together.
You're like, his head's fine.
And I'm like, look at his head. His head's perfect.
His eyes are fine
look
too.
At him.
What are you
He's
talking
so
about?
cute. He's not, no, this doesn't fit. And so, you know, they list off all these things and I just sit there and I'm like, that's not it. My gut knew it. It was almost like neurology had just found something, so they clung to it. And they were like, oh, that's it. Okay, see you later.
They want to give you answers desperately, right? Yeah. Especially when they know you've been through this journey for years. It's like, let's give them some sort of hope. And sometimes we as healthcare workers think that giving information is hope. Yeah. But ultimately, it sounds like it was really not helpful for you.
It was helpful in the fact that, yeah, he does have a chromosome abnormality, but we still have this armful of symptoms that don't match this at all. I mean, there's maybe one or two that matched. One was a development delay, and that was kind of the only thing that fit. But other than that, all of his other symptoms, they don't make sense. And in my gut, I'm like, this isn't it. And neurology's like, okay, see you next year.
I think this helps or reminds me of a story that I kind of ran into this situation. It's actually with my sister-in-law.
Okay.
And it was her first baby. And we had at least one, maybe two. It was just a simple joke that I threw out that did not go well. And I'm pretty sure she holds it against me to this day. But, you know, and the baby comes out and they kind of have a cone head.
Yeah.
I said something along the lines of, he's got a cone head. Is he going to have that the rest of his life? And I was totally joking. But is why I'm telling that story is hearing yours. We as parents, when we hear things, it really sticks to us. When people throw stuff like that, even if it's just simple jokes, it really affects us. Because ultimately, as parents, we want so much good for our kids. And as you know, Lexi, my wife, works in childhood death, right? A lot of these crazy hard cases, and she's told me the deepest grief a human can feel is when their child passes away. And I've always found that interesting. I always thought it would be a spouse, right? It's like, oh, you love me more than the kids, right? That's not true. Well, maybe that's true, but I don't know. Yeah. But the deepest grief a human can possibly feel is when their posterity, so their child, it dies, right? Mm-hmm. And we can relate this to what you're feeling with Hudson, because you're going through like this grief process throughout this experience, his healthcare experience, and some things are sticking and they hurt. Tell us about the emotions that you felt along this journey.
Man, there's been so many. I remember, gosh, he was maybe a year old, and my family's all starting to get concerned about Hudson, and I have this uncle that comes over, and he is so funny, and he looks at Hudson and he's like, he's got messed up feet.
Great story.
And I looked at him and I was like, his feet are fine. Like, what are you talking about? He was right. Hudson does have messed up feet, and he saw it at a year old, but I was like, he does not.
We immediately protect, right?
Oh, the mama bear in me was just like, what are you talking about?
He's normal. Those are normal feet.
And then
you could say they were Wade's feet.
Yeah, those are Wade's feet. Those are not Mandy's feet. I don't know what you're talking about. But there was just stuff like that, people would say things that to me about him. And again, I'm kind of a mama bear. I just got defensive. Like, that doesn't fit. That's not him. But Come to find out it was.
What advice do you have for people that are coming into your life now that you've been through this? Was that helpful to you? Was that hurtful? What advice do you have for those people that see things that are like, ugh, I don't know, I want to give you help, but I don't want to offend you?
I mean, just sometimes it's not what you say, but it's how you say it. Instead of being like, hey, that kid has messed up feet, be like, hey, his feet look a little different. Maybe you should get those looked at. I don't know. It just comes back to how you approach it. And I think the way that it came out,
especially with moms, I've learned this. I've learned this very well. Is there's things that women can say to men, but men can't say those things back. A good example of this is the other day, Lexi said to me, "You're gonna wear that?" But in my head, I was like, if I ever said that to you, that would not go over well.
You're a smart man, Brad.
But I mean, the story is like, be tactful.
Yeah.
How you say it really matters. You got to be thoughtful about the words that come out of your mouth, especially when speaking about someone's child, because it can really deeply affect them.
Yeah, it really can. And, there was a lot of people who thought a lot of different things. And I don't feel like I was in a mental place to hear what they had to say. I didn't want to hear that my child wasn't normal. I didn't want to hear that he wasn't ever going to run. I didn't want to hear that he wasn't ever going to walk. I wasn't ready to hear those things because I truly did have to go through a grieving process of what I expected his life to look like. I mean, Wade, he's a hunter, he's a fisher, he's a man's man. And I was, I finally had this
Hudson
son.
To be that. Yeah.
Yeah, I had this son and I wanted him to be able to do those things with his dad, and accepting the fact that he might not ever do those things was really hard for me. And I wear my emotions on my sleeve. And so it just would come out all the time. And I'd end up crying in front of people. And they were always like, oh no, we've hurt Mandy's feelings. But I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm just still trying to process my son. Like, that truly is. And I still am today,
Yeah. And you've come so far with your feelings. I've seen you in your darker feelings where you're like, I hate everyone.
I was ready to burn the healthcare industry.
Every hospital, burn every healthcare worker,
Here's
every
the
physician.
Match. Light it.
But I also feel like you've come to a better place.
Oh,
Tell us
so much.
about that gap that we say that grieving is a cycle, right? And it doesn't happen in sequential order. And you have different feelings along the way. But tell us about, we'll kind of finish his story here in a minute, but tell us about that gap and that bridge that's been built and what you would say now.
If I could go back to myself sitting in that neurology room, listening to this doctor hand me this packet of like, here's your answers. But again, my mother's intuition was like, that's not your answer. I wish that I could have just calmly looked at my doctor and said, I know that this might be part of the puzzle, but this isn't all of it. I know this isn't all of it. And I wish I could have said those things, but I felt so small in that hospital room because they're so smart. They've been to years of school. They see and do and fix things that I couldn't ever dream of understanding. So I didn't feel like I had the grounds to stand on to tell these people that there was more. I just said, okay. And I took my packet and I walked out. But then, I got home and I'm just like flames out my ears, just ready. I'm like, gosh, I wish I could have pushed for more. And then I kind of jumped to anger. These people don't want to help me. They just want to take this chromosome abnormality and check the box and shoo me out the door. That's what I convinced myself that was happening. That's not what was happening, but that's what my defensive self wanted to say.
Yeah.
I came home and my husband, he is self-employed. So there was a lot of times that he couldn't come to these appointments with me. It was just me and Hudson. And imagine these 1.5 hour long appointments with the 2-year-old, right? Not only am I trying to keep my child calm, but I'm trying to absorb everything that this neurologist is telling me. And
sometimes in terms you're like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
And not to be rude, but he had a slight accent and it was hard.
So he's already speaking in medical terms, and then the accent on top of it, and then the speed in which he's saying it.
I'm telling you, 80% of what he said went right over my head. I think I did that maybe twice before I got smart. And I said, okay, I need you to have a PA come in this meeting with us and take notes. So the PA would come in she would take notes and I'd say, email those to me. So that's what I had to do.
The beauty of a PA's role, I believe that PAs, in my experience, with the hundreds that I've worked with, are so much better at connection with people. There's just something that happens in med school that gets doctors so ingrained in learning and being a perfectionist of what they do. These soft skills, we call them soft skills. I believe they're hard skills, which is connection, human touch, are taught so well in the physician assistant roles. And that's their role, is to bridge the gap between the high level, like skilled physician to the human connection with the patient. So I love what you did. What prompted you, or what guided you to ask for that service?
Because I'd come home after these appointments and Wade would be like, tell me about it. And I was like, Hudson was horrible. I don't know. It was hard.
He's never walking again. He's never going hunting. He's never fishing. I don't know.
Hudson screamed the whole time. I didn't hear anything. I was trying to shush him. I was trying to get snacks. Wade looked at me and I'm like, and these people don't get it. And he's like, Mandy, you need them. We need them. These are people that are going to help Hudson. We can't be upset with them. We can't be mad at them, but we need them. So don't burn it down, but let's find a way to come to their level and bring them to our level, meet them in the middle. And the PA was that for me.
What you just said, Mandy, was probably one of the most profound things I've heard in my life. And that is, we need each other. Mm-hmm. Like me as a physical therapist that's striving to do so much good and mastering my craft at what I do, and so much heart, study, just workload that's in my life. For someone to say that, like, we need you, it is a two-way street. We need each other in the healthcare system. We need each other to improve this together. There's so much that's misunderstood, and we've spent our lives dedicating everything we can to understand these things. And for you to come forward and say, we need each other, that is the healthcare revolution. That's what it's all about.
I agree full-heartedly. I can't do it without you, and you can't do it without me. So let's figure out a way to make this work for both of us.
And I love that you said, like, let's come to a level that we both understand each other. So you had this tool, this physician assistant that came in, took notes, emailed them to you. That built this bridge of understanding. I love that.
And she wrote it in a way, in a 7th grade level, that Mandy could understand, because I can go back in my app and I can open, the summary of our clinic visit and I can read the notes, but I can't make heads. I can't make heads or tails of that. I can't. It doesn't make any sense. And so when I started asking them to do more for me, they did it. And that was the moment that it shifted for me. I went from feeling lonely, alone, lost, to empowered, to ready to fight for my child, to take what I knew that was in what was in my gut. I was ready to go find it, but I couldn't do it through anger. Anger was holding me back. And so I let go of the anger and I just let it fuel me. Then I think neurology knew that I was struggling mentally, and they sent me to a genetic counselor. So a genetic counselor, at the time, again, I was angry. I'm like, they think I need counseling.
I need a therapist.
They think I'm crazy.
Just burn it.
They think I'm crazy. But no, she's there to help me understand Hudson. So I put off this appointment for like 3 months because I was just annoyed. I'm like, not reschedule it. I'm not going. I'm mad. I'm not ready. I wasn't ready to accept it. But then finally one day I was like, you know what? Let's do this. I'm ready to face this person. I'm going to tell her exactly how I feel. So I walk in this room and her name is Stacy Cole, and I'm forever grateful for her because she sat and listened to me vent. I mean, literally vent for an hour. And she said, do you mind if I ask you a few questions? And I said, yeah, okay, that's fine. She probably asked me 50 questions that I had to answer yes or no. I didn't have to expound. But she knew that I was frustrated. I was tired of watching Hudson being poked and prodded and tortured and put to sleep on anesthesia for tests that they were shooting off the hip. I was done. I had reached my limit. I was ready to accept Hudson for the way he is, and I was never going to have a diagnosis. And I was ready to let this lady know it. Like, quit, leave him alone, leave us alone, we're done. And after the end of these 50 questions, she said, I know you just said that you're done hurting Hudson. She said, and I get it. You should be done. You should be fed up. But can I ask for just an ultrasound? And I said, does he have to be put to sleep? And she said, no, I will be there, so he does not have to be put to sleep. And I said, okay. I can't watch him go through anesthesia one more time. I mean, it had been, he's like 2 and he'd been put under like 8 times. Like I was just, I was done. And she said, after hearing everything that you told me, and she did a short physical exam on his back, and she said, I have a hunch. And I was like, okay. So a week later, we went in for an ultrasound, and she didn't tell me what her hunch was. I had no idea what she was looking for. We were just going to check out his back, was for all I knew. And the tech calls us back. She didn't end up being there. She got called into some other thing, but it was okay. Hudson was in a good mood. We were in a good place. I was like, let's do this. And the tech's like, okay, so we're searching for a tumor. And I'm like,
lack of communication there.
Anxiety sets in. Mandy goes, I mean, I'm spiraling, right? Mm-hmm. A tumor? What do you mean? No, my son doesn't have a tumor. But my husband's with me, thank goodness, because I don't think I could have made it to his appointment without him. And we're sitting there, and Child Life was there. And they're...
Go Child Life.
Oh, they are. I could
Tell us who Child Life is, if for those of you who don't know.
Child Life specialists come in, and they make hospitals not scary. That's the best way I like to explain it, because they make Hudson feel calm. They make him feel like it's not so cold and scary. They bring the happy things. They make it light. I think their whole goal is to not traumatize children, which
100%.
Hudson was traumatized. It was done. It was rough. And that day they came in, and they had these twinkly lights on the ceiling, and they had cars, and they had a racetrack, and he just laid there. I have never seen him lay there for an exam calm. And I remember looking at... If you
don't have a Child Life specialist when your child is in the hospital, request one. They are so crucial. And then sometimes in the healthcare system, they're kind of kicked down as like the play ladies.
Oh, yeah.
But there's so much knowledge. There's so much in-depth training that they have to be able to captivate children to make it a non-dramatic experience. We've dug deep into the research, and we're realizing that kids that are traumatized in the hospitals rarely seek out medical care later in life because they're scared of it. Their childhood trauma is now carried into adulthood, and it really affects their health. So love Child Life specialists.
Oh my goodness.
Helpful.
Hudson didn't step foot in a hospital for months because he would just scream and cry and no, because he thought he was going to be, pinned down and given an IV and this and that. But Child Life came in for this ultrasound because I requested them. They don't just come in. Again, be proactive. Get what you want there. Make them work for you, And they came in, and he just laid there. And I looked at Wade, and Wade's looking at me, and we're like, are you seeing this? Look at him. He's doing it. In fact, I took a video of it because I was so in awe. But all of a sudden, the tech starts rapid firing pictures. And I'm that was the moment that my gut was like, she found something. And she's like, okay, I'm just going to need to go talk to a doctor real quick, and I'll be right back. So she leaves, and I immediately look at Wade, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's happening. He has a tumor in his back. And Wade's, Mandy, calm down. We don't know what this is.
Husbands.
Bless them. He's the calm. I am the anxiety-ridden one.
You gotta have one of each.
I jump to conclusions. I Google. I do all the things you're not supposed to do. And Wade's like, it's okay. So, but again, my mother's intuition, it was right again. I knew. And she comes back in, and she's like, okay, we did find what we were looking for, and we need to send Hudson for an MRI. And I'm like, here we go again. Right when I said I was done, let's go put him under again and do another MRI. And I'm glad I did, because Dr. Cole, had she not sat down and listened to me for an hour, I don't think we would have found it.
And it's interesting to hear this journey, because you had so many influences. So we're talking about all the healthcare influences. We talked a little bit about family. Let's talk about other influences that you had along the way to lead you to this point. What other influences did you have? We're talking about like mommy bloggers, neighbors, friends.
You
Like
know,
what was helpful, what was not?
do you know what was not helpful? People not acknowledging that something was wrong. I felt like people were gaslighting me. You know, they're like, he's fine. What are you talking about? He's fine. I'm like, he's 2 and he's not walking. He's not fine. And they're like, nah, he's just a boy. Boys are slower. I'm like, don't do that. It would make me so angry. And they would pretend. It almost made me feel crazy.
So you went from this journey of being defensive initially to now people were saying it was normal, and now you're almost defensive about it being normal. So it's like 2 areas of the spectrum.
Yeah. And it was such a hush-hush subject. You know, people knew that something was not quite right with Hudson, but they wouldn't talk about it because they didn't know where I stood. And it's like they were scared to bring it up. But it was easier and better for me to talk about it. The more I talked about it, the more normal it was. The more I was open and honest with people, the more accepting my body was of it. You know, I wasn't pushing away this, you know, my Hudson's not okay. It's like, you know what? He might be different, but it is okay. Let's talk about it. The more I talk about it, the more I find, oh, someone, you know, from this walk of life experienced this. Maybe we should go down this avenue. And that's truly how I found it. It was talking about it and being okay with it. I can't remember exactly, but I had talked about him on my stories on Instagram once. And I remember Wade coming home and being like, why are you talking about that on social media? I'm like, because I have to. I have to get it out of me.
Yeah.
And I mean, the village that came behind me the minute that I opened up about Hudson, I mean, so many people cheer him on, even to this day. Name a person that doesn't love Hudson. Like, everyone does. They're just rooting for him, you know? And the moment we open up and we can be vulnerable about our children who are different is the moment we give them the chance to thrive.
Yeah. Because you went from the beginning stages of being defensive about this condition, which essentially closed off a pathway for connection and isolated you. But the minute you were vulnerable and was willing to share the struggles of Hudson, all of a sudden this opened this floodgate of help, of people that were willing to lift you up and assist you. And, you know, there were probably things that were helpful and probably things that were not. And you're just like, bless your heart, but thank you. You know, tell us about maybe 2 or 3 examples that helped guide you along the journey to get to the eventual diagnosis. And then we'll talk about his eventual diagnosis and where you're at now.
Okay, so I had an aunt and an uncle said, hey, we have found these people. They were just talking to us about their daughter, and their daughter's 3 and she doesn't walk, and she wears SMOs like Hudson, and we gave her your number. We don't know if that's helpful. We don't know if that's not helpful, but this is her number, and maybe you guys can connect. And I'm like, oof.
Deep breath.
I don't know how I feel about that. You know, I don't know this person from Adam, but this random stranger that I end up talking to on the phone for an hour has struggles just like I do. And it turns out that her daughter's struggles and Hudson's struggles were completely different, but we connected in a way that was okay, that we were both able to like talk about it. She made it okay for me to tell strangers, you know, because a lot of times people assume that they know what's wrong with Hudson. You know, like, oh, he's autistic. I can't tell you how many times people told me he's autistic. I knew that
came out at some point.
Can't tell you how many times.
And you're like, he doesn't like to cuddle. He's not autistic.
Like,
doesn't like to be swaddled. Doesn't like pressure.
No, and he loves interaction. Yeah. He loves to look you in the eye. He loves to play. He loves to sing songs. Yeah. And, you know, I learned that while every autistic kid might have sensory processing disorder, not every sensory kid is autistic.
Yeah.
Hudson's a sensory kid, you know, and that's okay. But again, being open, that's how I got my knowledge, was literally talking to other moms and Google, but I don't recommend Google.
Why don't you recommend Google?
Because Hudson had cancer at one point, so I don't know.
What else did Hudson have in Google?
I mean, everything. It's just not healthy for the mom to do that. The minute that I accepted it and stopped fighting against it was the second that Hudson and I started to reconnect. He started to cuddle.
Oh, I love that.
He's my little buddy now. He's, you know, it was interesting when my mindset changed, when I was ready to talk about and to find the things that I wasn't ready to accept. His whole demeanor changed, you know, and so did mine. So it was just kind of interesting. And these doctors that were willing to listen led us down the path to find his diagnosis.
And tell me about, you said something that I had influenced along the way. I'm curious.
Oh my goodness. We were trick-or-treating.
Trick-or-treating.
This was last year. This time last year. And we had just found out that Hudson had the lipoma down in the bottom of his spine, which again, I thought was a tumor, but
which we found from the ultrasound.
Yes, which we found from the ultrasound. We hadn't had the MRI yet, but we had the ultrasound, and I'm like, Brad, help me. And you're like, hey, it's okay. Let's go get the MRI and then let's go from there. And I remember Hudson got sick. His MRI got pushed out 3 weeks because you can't sedate a kid when they're stuffy and have a cold and whatever. So he got his MRI, and I'm the mom that gets in the app, before the doctor calls me, and I'm reading the results.
You're reading the MRI, interpreting it yourself before the doctor says it.
Oh, I'm copy and pasting and putting it in Google.
That is the least healthy thing you can do.
Bad.
There's so many things in the MRI that just don't matter.
I literally would go all the way to the bottom and just read the impressions.
Yeah.
And
as a clinician that's, got some in-depth training on MRIs, I can be deceived as well. And that's why it's important to understand what things truly mean. And a lot of it's white noise.
Oh.
And a lot of it's just like, well, we're comparing it to what we think is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no real perfect MRI. So they really want to highlight everything that they see as a radiologist.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot sometimes. They're very vocal in typing words, which is helpful clinically because it helps us as clinicians be able to just wash out the white noise and really focus on the matching the symptom to what we're seeing on the MRI. Because if it doesn't match the clinical findings, like what's happening physically, it's just white noise. And we can get so distracted by those things. And it's just really important anytime you look at, an x-ray or MRI and you see the impressions, to have a clinical expert help interpret those, because it's just a different language.
Oh, it 100% is. And again, that was one of my faults, because I was dealing with people where I knew the results were in. They were in, I could see them, but no one was calling me back. Yeah. It would take weeks for them to call me back.
And you're like, I'm just going to interpret it myself.
I'm like, I'm just going to Google this. No, but what I ended up doing is instead of trying to interpret my results, I'd see that they were in, and I'd give my office a call and say, hey, I can see that Hudson's MRI results are in. Could you have the doctor take a peek at those and call me later today? You know how much faster I got my results?
Oh,
do you know how much faster?
Helpful when that happens. Because, when I get an MRI in, say I have 60 emails to respond to, it's coming into my inbox, and sometimes it just gets filtered out. I'm going to get to it eventually, but there's just so much volume of things as healthcare workers to get through. To be able to call is really hard, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes the radiologist, if it's something really serious, they'll call us physically and say, hey, I need to talk to so-and-so. But the majority of the time, it's just in our inbox, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just when we get to it. And so I get both sides, because as a parent, you're like, I want it now.
Yeah, I know.
But then as a healthcare worker, there's so many demands that we have that we're trying to respond to, so many people that we're trying to connect with. It's just hard to get to everything in a timely manner.
And see, that's where my perspective changed when I met you, because it was like I started to understand the doctor side of it, the medical side of it, because I was so focused on, why aren't these people helping me? Why aren't they calling me? These results are in. But I'm like, okay, wait. How many pediatric neurologists are there in Utah? There's not very many. And how many kids do you think they're seeing? They're booked. It's no wonder it takes me 9 months to get an appointment up there. I mean, they're literally booked. And so I kind of had to find my patience and say, okay, I can see these are in. When you have a minute, call me. Put me on your list, and then I'd get my results in 2 days instead of 2 weeks, and that was okay for me. But trying to interpret the results on my own, I don't do that. That's bad. So
it's definitely challenging.
It is but the control freak in me so wanted to.
What was so helpful about this interaction when we went trick-or-treating?
When they're going to want to scan his back. And you said, do you think everything's okay with his spinal cord? Have they ever scanned his back? And I was like, what are you talking about? They've never. And then I just sat there and I thought, no one has ever looked at his back. Why have I not looked at his back? And I'm like, Mandy, you idiot. It's his legs. Of course his back's connected. Why? And I just started to spiral again in a way. But really, you opened the door to like, oh yeah, maybe something is wrong. And then we got that MRI and I got those results and I screenshotted them and I sent them to you. I'm like, Brad, what does this mean? And, you were like, it's okay. I see this all the time. It's actually way more common than you think. Everything's going to be fine. It's okay. And once you had said that to me, I was like, okay, he's okay. We have answers. I didn't think I was ever going to get those, ever.
What did that do for you, getting these answers?
Oh my gosh. I've never felt so validated. When you Google or look up the symptoms of a tethered spinal cord, Hudson checks every box. All of these handful of symptoms that I could not make heads or tails of all made sense. And that was the moment where I was just like, I took a giant deep breath and I was like, oh, I did it. We found it.
You got to the finish line.
Oh my gosh.
At least finding what was going on, right?
Yeah, because not knowing was driving me crazy.
Yeah, you probably felt crazy at some point.
Oh my gosh, so
like,
crazy.
Am I making this up? Am I creating this? Like all these.
It was huge
things,
because
right?
I felt like I was the one that was pushing for these tests. We had muscle biopsies. We had orthopedic specialists scanning him. We had, so many things were done, and I felt like it was my fault. That I was torturing him. I was torturing him. I was sending him for all of these things that essentially didn't need to be done. But I didn't know what to do. I was just trying to help my son.
Such a remarkable story. So tell us where he is today, where you are. I know they ended up having the surgery.
Yes.
There was some really challenging things that happened during his stay. He was sent home early.
Yeah.
I remember you sent me that picture of his spine that was just very swollen.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up getting readmitted to the hospital. Yeah. So there were some errors, some challenges that happened there. I really want to emphasize, before you kind of tell us where he is, we were joking earlier about, we have so much patience for so many people in the world with customer service. We think about contractors. Contractors are so spread thin sometimes. They don't respond to you. It's like you're like weeks, months. My plumber right now, dude, has been telling me he's going to come to my house. Literally, it's been a month. I'm like, bro, I need my bathroom done. Like, literally, it's going to take you probably less than 35 minutes. You know what I mean? And just doesn't respond. Literally, it's been a month. And I'm like, and he's got my parts. So I'm like, I need you because you got my parts and I already paid for them. Like, just come finish the job, right? But then we have patience for all these other professions in customer service. But the minute we get to healthcare, we kind of lose that a little bit.
Oh, we totally do.
What would you say to that?
I would say that I am so guilty of that because, these are supposed to be the medical, professionals. They're supposed to have all the answers. They're supposed to make heads or tails of this, but no one could. And that was frustrating. But I have grown a lot in the ways I have so much more grace for my neurologist, for my neurosurgeon, because again, the surgery didn't go perfectly. He had surgery in February of this year and it had its challenges, but I will tell you this, my neurosurgeon is such a good person. He was by me the entire time. And when something went wrong and he knew, it's something he had to fix, he apologized to me 500 times. I'm just so sorry. I'm just so sorry. I really wish we weren't here. I'm so sorry. This, we could have done this differently, but I didn't want to put Hudson through this. He tried. He did the very best that he could, but he's human.
Mm-hmm.
He's human. And you know what? Not everything goes perfect all the time. And that's kind of what happened with Hudson's surgery. And at the time, was I frustrated? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. But anytime I saw that surgeon in the hospital, I just wanted to hug him. I watched him run around the ICU. It seemed like every patient needed him. And I could see how spread thin he was. And I was like, do you need a hug? Like, I'm just so grateful. Thank you for helping my son. Thank you for getting us to where we are, because it's easy to say, oh, they're ignoring me. They're throwing Hudson to the wind.
One part that I think we need to validate as well is the wives of these surgeons, the wives of these healthcare workers that just put their whole heart and life into this. What about them?
God bless them. This dude lives at the hospital. Mm-hmm. I remember I asked him when things had kind of calmed down. I said, what do you do in your free time? And he said, what's free time? And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, I watched him be called the Lifeline, literally, because Lifeline landed on Hudson's room, so we could hear it when it'd come in. I watched him be paged 6 times a day in the middle of the night. The dude never went home. Did he sleep?
Who knows?
I don't know. I don't know how he's functioning.
Yeah.
But yet he has given his all to Hudson. And I can't thank him enough. Because Hudson,
what's so cool about it is he's probably doing it for the kid in the next room.
Oh,
too.
he is. He is giving.
Know he's doing it.
He is. I've never felt such peace with any sort of medical professional like I did our neurosurgeon. We had the MRI when we set up a meeting with neurosurge. And they tell me, okay, it's going to be with Dr. Iyer. And I'm like, I'm going to Google that. So I Google Dr. Iyer and I start reading. And I mean, it's 5-star after 5-star. This guy is patient. His bedside is unmatched. And I'm like, okay, let's do this. So I go and he sat and he turned his monitor around and he went through every detailed little tiny thing of Hudson's back. And he made sure that I understood what was going on. He drew a little track, like the paper that goes out on the beds. He drew a track that Hudson could drive his cars on to keep Hudson entertained.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, he went above and beyond to make sure that I understood. He went the extra mile to help me find peace because he could see that I was very unsettled with this. And he reassured me, I have the skills to help your son. He's going to be okay. He said, we're going to be lifelong friends. And he said, this isn't something that goes away. We're lifers. That's what he said to me. And I was like, we are lifers. Yeah, we are.
Like we're, and for you as a parent, it's like, I feel a connection, right? You're like, you're in this with me along the journey, no matter what comes. Like, essentially, he was telling me, I got you. He's
behind me. He is my guy. Like, he's going to help us through this. And he's not only going to help us through it, he's going to keep helping us through it. Yeah. With the way that he connected with Wade and I was just, I mean, I walked out of that room and I just sobbed because I felt like someone had just finally was ready to help me.
Yeah.
And was ready to make it all make sense.
Tell us what Hudson's doing today.
Oh, he's the best. He's at school right now, Brad. I didn't think he was ever going to go to school. Like,
they was worried about his bladder control, his bowel control, right? And
all of the above. He's potty trained.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was a huge thing with the tethered spinal cord.
How's his walking? How he's moving around?
I look at him when he walks and I'm like, look how tall he's standing. Look how straight he's standing. And I'm just in disbelief that he can even move. He was walking before surgery, but not well. Like, it was his gait was really messed up. They untethered that cord and he stood up.
Popped right up.
And he went. And I was just like, holy cow. He tries to run. He jumps on the tramp. He's
so cute when he jumps on the tramp.
Oh, it's the best. He's happy. That's the other thing is he was such an unhappy child pre-surgery. I mean, just angry at the world. Little did I know that was pain. Because Dr. Iyer was like, yeah, this kid's in pain. There's no way he's not. That's why he's unhappy. Yeah. And then post-surgery, we had a follow-up maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And he's like, how's his demeanor? I'm like, who is this kid? He's a new child.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
I have 3 questions for you as we wrap up this podcast. Number 1 is, what would you say to the healthcare workers that helped you through this?
Thank you. I couldn't have done it. Thank you for letting me be mad, for letting me have my anger, and then still being there when I was ready to accept the answers, for still helping me, even though I maybe wasn't the nicest patient for a minute. Thanks for hearing me, for acknowledging my mother's intuition. I used to have to take videos because that was the only way that they would see what I was seeing. I had hundreds of videos. I had a whole file in my phone of Hudson videos, Hudson's eyes, Hudson's feet, Hudson's legs. And that's how I got my doctors to see him, record him, because they get 10 minutes. I get 24/7, 365, and they're just incredible.
What would you say to your family, your friends, your husband, essentially your village?
I'm going to cry again. These people supported me in ways that I don't think I could have done it. I mean, we didn't talk a whole lot about his surgery, but that was the hardest month of my life. It was hard. I had 2 other kids I was trying to care for and a kid who couldn't get out of the hospital, and these people showed up for me in ways that I don't know if I'll ever be able to repay them. They validated my feelings. They let me cry on their doorstep. They took my girls when I couldn't be there. They picked them up from school. They cared for him when I couldn't. And then when I needed a break for a Hudson, they'd take Hudson. It's just, everyone needs a village. And the more you open up, the more you're ready to accept people's help, is the more you're going to feel lighter. You're going to feel boosted up. But you have to be ready for it.
My last question is what advice would you have to your younger self, or maybe someone that's going through a similar situation, of practical advice of what they can do to go through this journey in the most efficient way?
Take notes. Take so many notes. If you want to look like the crazy lady, be the crazy lady. I used to show up with papers, and I'd literally have check boxes next to every question. And I had a copy for me and a copy for the doctor. Here's your copy. These are my questions, and I need you to check that box before I leave this room.
I love that strong advocacy. It wasn't rude.
No.
It was kind. It was firm. It was, but on the other side, it's very helpful on the other side, because it's like, thank you. But we can just go through these, right?
Oh, and I was praised
because
when
there's
I
so
did
many
that.
things in our heads. We're like, what do we need to cover, right? And I'm not a surgeon. Like, there's just so many things that need to be said, and that packet that we need to cover. And we're like, do I give you the packet? Do you like? But when you come and you're curious and you have questions, then we know what to answer.
Yeah. And it was like, with each question, I'd be like, show Hudson's video of his feet. And I'd show him his video. And I can't tell you how many doctors like, you have no idea how helpful this is. Like, I know right where you are. I know right where he is. I don't have to guess. And that took the guesswork out of it. And it bridged that gap between the medical professional and the mom.
Yeah.
It helped us understand each other and come to, that middle ground. And just the best way to do it, I think, is firm but kind. Be firm in your questions, be firm in your curiosity, but be kind. These are humans. They're trying to figure it out too.
Yeah. I love that so much. That's such great advice, because, ultimately in the end, we're all human. And sometimes when we look at healthcare professionals, we think they're superhuman. They've studied, they've, dedicated their lives to understanding these things, and they're superhuman, and we begin to treat them as such. And when they're not superhuman, we're really disappointed. And I love your advice of being kind but firm and listening to your intuition, whatever you believe that to be. Listen to your gut, listen to deity, whatever it is, listen to that, because you are a steward over these children, and you know them best. You might not know all the things that are happening with them, but you see when something's not normal, and you track it. You're curious about it. You ask questions, and ultimately that is what it's all about, is coming together collectively as a cohesive unit, working together in tandem, deciding to meet each other where we can be. I love Wade's advice, is to let's bring it together. Like, let's get to a point where we can work as a team, because ultimately that's what it's all about. Because when we do that, we find answers and we find hope. We
find you a physician that's ready to listen, and that is truly, I couldn't have done it without my pediatrician. He's the one that led me to all my answers. He was ready. He didn't know what to do, and he willingly admitted that, but he was like, what do you think? Let's do it.
Yeah, I love more than anything it's really rare to get a thank you note from a patient. It's so meaningful, because we all try to give our all, right? And sometimes we go a little bit, more than what we maybe should, right? And sometimes it carries over into our personal lives, into our family lives. And, my wife was at work the other day, and one of my patients was having stroke-like symptoms, and ended up sending me a message. This was on a Sunday afternoon. I'm making my kids dinner, and my wife's at work, and I ended up handing my son, my 1-year-old, to my daughter, because everyone was being too loud, and I was sending her to the emergency room, but she had some complex disorders that I needed to call the emergency room before so they understood what was going on with her. She's having a panic attack. Her friend is actually doing really well and stable, and I'm walking through her what to do. She ends up blacking out in the car, and I ended up handing my 1-year-old to my daughter, my 8-year-old, and saying, can you handle this for a minute while I go take this call? I end up shutting my bedroom door and walking them through these situations, calling the charge nurse, calling the physician, her primary care physician, coordinating with the on-call physician to make sure she's getting the care that she needs. And it carries over into our personal lives, right? And it's a lot of people don't understand the level of effort and energy it takes. So when you get these thank you notes, it's so meaningful to know that you help someone on their journey, because ultimately I think we know, but when we get that gratitude from our patients, it's so nice.
Well, isn't that the whole reason you guys do what you do? Mm-hmm. You want to help people, and to know and, be told you helped me. That's gotta be such like a rewarding feeling.
Yeah. I slap them by my fridge, and I actually have all of them saved in a folder. And it's so meaningful and so helpful. But Mandy, thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for telling your story. I know we've talked for months about doing this, and you've been through this emotional roller coaster, but I believe these practical tips that you've shared with us are so helpful for all those that listen. It's just such great advice, such great insight, such a remarkable story that you'll be able to help so many people with. So thank you for sharing it.
My goodness, thanks for having me. Thanks for being patient with me while I got myself together.
It's been so great. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you.